All right, everybody, we are back with your Beyond Salem review. We're going to jump right into things. First of all, I'm going to say it was a little bit confusing, was it not? Watching one at a time, watching the regular show either before or after the main show each day for Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Maybe some people didn't watch it that way, and I don't know if that would have been more or less confusing, because sometimes it felt like people were in two places at the same time, especially Eli, Lani, Paulina, and Abe. They were off on their trip for the Labor Day weekend in Miami, but on the regular show they were back before the week was over, the week that was the whole Labor Day weekend Alamanian Peacock fiasco. So in my view it got a little bit confusing, but if you remember that basically this past week those events occurred, or what I'm trying to say is the Beyond Salem stuff occurred in between this past week and this current week that we are in. So if that makes it any, I think I just confused things more, but if that makes things any more clear to you, then great. I also found it to be a little bit too campy, but also a lot of fun, and it was definitely a throwback to the 80s and I guess maybe the early 90s, you could say. But some of the characters that were on the show that we have missed for a while would have more been 90s characters, I suppose, like Austin and whatnot, early 90s. But at the same time, I think it had a very 80s throwback to the caper style. I wasn't a huge fan of the intro, and it's not a knock on Deirdre Hall or the fact that they had the audacity to have someone other than McDonald Carrie. For instance, I didn't mind it. It was just the delivery rather than who they chose to do it or how they chose to do it that I wasn't too keen about, I guess you could say. I didn't necessarily mind that I actually expected a slightly different theme, or like opening theme, like they did with previous specials such as Night Sins and One Stormy Night in the past. But we've already talked about those two. If you want to check that out, it's in my Beyond Salem preview. We talked a little bit about Night Sins and One Stormy Nights, which were one-off specials back in the day, of course. So without further ado, because we don't want to make this too long of a video, it's just a special recap video of Beyond Salem. I do have the normal weekly recap coming up, which will obviously drop on late Friday or Saturday or potentially Sunday, as per usual. So we all have that to look forward to, but without further ado, we're going to jump into Beyond Salem. So this is just going to be a casual review. It's not going to be a big, huge, detailed breakdown, but I held off a little bit from this review to give people some extra time over another weekend to be able to consume it and be done with it, and just give everybody a little bit more time to watch all of it before I dove into Beyond Salem. So we have, first of all, Billie. Well, it starts off obviously with Shane to help recover this necklace, which is this necklace has a bunch of gems in it, and we find out later that there's all sorts of gems, and they need all of these gems back as they are all part of this Alamanian Peacock. And we find out more about this Alamanian Peacock, a little things into history. So we'll get into some of that, how they tied things into historical days stuff instead of just making stuff up all brand new. So on that note, we get Billie posing as Princess Gina, which is kind of odd because we know the original Princess Gina, of course, died a long time ago, and Hope was the doppelganger of Princess Gina. So Billie, as you know, when people all thought that Hope was dead for years, Billie was a significant partner in the past of Bo Brady's. Bo Brady, of course, is now also dead, but we won't get into that. What we will get into is Billie and Bo were together for a long time. They even have a daughter that they didn't know about for a long time, but they do have a daughter named Chelsea. And it's funny that Chelsea doesn't come up, because Ben and Ciara run into Billie, and yes, she's posing as Princess Gina, but the odd thing is Billie's daughter Chelsea is a sister to Ciara, but they don't actually talk about or mention or ask about Chelsea. But Chelsea isn't really significant to this story. It's just that, you know, hey, how's my sister doing? Maybe not. Okay. Billie was with Beau for a long time. Of course, Chelsea kind of got into that car accident that killed Beau and Hope's other son, Zach. But nonetheless, Chelsea is a sister to Ciara, so just wanted to make that point. When Ben and Ciara run into Billie, Billie catches them up on what she has been up to, and that she is on a secret mission to uncover some of the jewels, namely this necklace, and she explains all of that to Ciara and Ben, who are obviously very, very surprised and interested to know why Billie would be dressed up as Princess Gina von Umberg, of all people. So they have it explained to them, and they come up with the idea that Ciara, since she knows all the history of Princess Gina, she decides that perhaps she could pose as Princess Gina's daughter, Greta von Umberg. Now, of course, Greta von Umberg herself would now be quite older than Ciara is, but we will not worry about all of that, as they did not. And even when Hope was playing Gina, Hope was much younger than Gina, the original Princess Gina, would have been at that time. So if you can keep track of all of that, give yourself a pat on the back. But because we have Ciara posing as Princess Greta von Umberg, and then Ben is going to pretend to be her old boyfriend slash partner, Austin Reed, because at that time, back in that day, Austin Reed and Greta were together, and I can't remember this part too well, but they did have, and this was mentioned, but they did have some strange virtual storyline, VR storyline, virtual reality storyline back in the mid-90s, where they were dumped into the virtual Garden of Eden and had to escape or something to prove something or other. I have absolutely no idea. I don't have a good... If you out there remember that one any better than I do, you can feel free to comment and fill me in on the strange virtual reality Garden of Eden storyline, but I don't recall it that well. So Ben is going to pretend to be Austin Reed, and Ciara is going to pretend to be Greta von Umberg, and they go to the Fabrishams party. Little do they know. Oh, by the way, the Fabrishams are the granddaughter and her husband, the granddaughter of Lily Fabrisham. If any of you out there, I do remember Lily Fabrisham. This is the granddaughter of Lily Fabrisham and her husband, I believe. So they go to this party to try to uncover some necklace, some jewels, all connected to the Alamanian Peacock. Ben as Austin Reed and Ciara as Greta von Umberg. So they masquerade as the princess and her partner, Austin Reed, and they discover that when they get to the party, it's a debaucherous sex party. So there's that. And they quickly go into action. Ciara comes up with a plan to go off upstairs with Lily Fabersham's granddaughter's husband, and she handcuffs him to the bed, which immobilizes him as she then tries to look for the jewel. And Ben, of course, gets himself into some trouble downstairs with the granddaughter of Lily Fabersham, who essentially jumps him on the couch, but Ciara is back just in time with what they came for, and they try to book it out of there. Meanwhile, or not meanwhile, I guess we're just gonna go through this in sections. So later on we have quote-unquote Shane meeting Ben for the first time, and this really struck me as very off, because Shane's reaction to meeting Ben was too... He didn't react in such a way that made a lot of sense at first, and then we later find out why, but it was definitely a red flag right there, because we had Shane meeting Ben, who at the time that Ben was the necktie killer, Ben was responsible for killing Shane's grandchild, Paige. And so when Shane said, "Oh, I've had a long time to get over that, everything's fine, cheerio, mate," that seemed a little bit strange. So we later find out why that is, and I'll get to that in just a moment. Meanwhile, we have the return of Will, a new Sonny, Chad, and yes, Leo Stark. Sonny basically is under the impression that Will was cheating on him again, and then Sonny and Chad discover Will with Leo in a hotel room, but in reality what was going on is Will was just after a big story that's breaking, I guess, about this Alamanian Peacock and what's going on. One thing leads to another, and Leo tells them that they've got to go to this, I guess it was a gay bar, where they end up having a drag queen contest, and the winner of that contest is going to win this really expensive ruby. Can you imagine winning a ruby of that value just for winning a drag queen contest in a gay bar? Anyhow, Will and Sonny and Leo and Chad are all entered into this drag queen contest. Actually, I'm not too sure if Leo actually got into this, because I believe what happened was he said he was banned from drag queen contests for life because, well, he's Leo and always is stirring up trouble, I suppose. So we have Sonny and Will in the drag queen contest, and of course Chad, who worries about whether or not he'll be an ugly woman, he actually ends up winning the contest and coming out with that emerald gem. So there we go. Meanwhile, in Miami, we find out that Paulina has in her house in Miami, she keeps in a safe a very nice ring with another one of the gems, and she wants to wear it out to their lunch in Miami. And lo and behold, the ring also came from Michelle in the White House, and so everybody thinks that Paulina has been schmoozing with Michelle Obama. Of course, that's just another one of those days jokes that I guess Ron likes to write. So much like the names Harrison Lord and Callista Lockhart, we get a Michelle White who doesn't have anything to do with Michelle Obama and does not live in the White House. She just has a friend named Michelle White who gave her a ring that happened to, unbeknownst to either of them, be stolen, and is all tied to part of this Alamanian Peacock fiasco. Meanwhile, in Zurich, let's see what we have going on over in Zurich. We've got John, Marlena, Austin, Carrie, Tony, and Anna all in Zurich. John and Marlena have gone there to help out Shane on this caper, and Austin and Carrie live in Zurich, of course. Tony and Anna went to Zurich to help Austin and Carrie, as they have seemingly been having marriage problems, and the story behind that is that Austin, when he was in a drunken mess, had said something about Carrie's affair with Rafe, and they got into a little bit of a spat, I guess you could say, and so Anna wants to help things out, and Austin has this idea that if he gets this really expensive necklace for Carrie, that it will smooth everything out, and Anna loves the idea, and they're going to go and bet, Tony and Anna are going to go bet on the necklace on behalf of Austin. Where all this money is coming from, I don't know, unless Anna and Tony are paying for it, but I don't think Austin has the money for $1 million necklace. So there's that, but that's what goes on there. And John, Marlena, Tony, and Anna all go off to bet on this necklace, as John has been enlisted by Shane Donovan to go undercover and bet on this necklace and bring it back for the ISA. So it's nice to see a whole bunch of old characters finally back on days here on Beyond Salem. It gives them an opportunity to show us what some of these characters have been up to and have them on screen again. We also see Eileen Davidson's return, and at first she is playing one of her many characters that she used to play on Days of Our Lives, and we see Sister Mary Moira come to Austin and Carrie's place, and that plays into later because we find out that she was the one who was doing some shenanigans when she was at that house, and seems to be the one who got away with setting up Austin, because Austin is found out later that later on John and Carrie discover that there are some gems in Austin's bag, and they think that he is perhaps the jewel thief, but that doesn't quite make too much sense. So later we figure out that the jewels were planted on Austin, and the culprit that planted them on Austin figured that he would be caught later on, perhaps at the airport or otherwise, and I guess they were gonna swoop in and take the jewels or something like that. We have a very funny fight between Kristen and Billie also on Beyond Salem, where they completely get at it, and they're calling each other beast and bringing up bad things in each other's past that they have done, and it turns into quite the skirmish. And I've heard some people out there say that the scenes between Lisa Rinna and Eileen Davidson have to do with another show called the Real Housewives show, I think. See, I've never seen that, but apparently they were actually, to some degree, reenacting a scene that occurred on that. So a little bit of a Easter egg, I suppose, for fans of that show, and also just a little bit of a treat for old school fans of Days of Our Lives that watched it throughout the 90s to see Kristen and Billie, just like the 80s fans get to see Tony and Anna and Shane. So all of that very cool. And of course, we also are introduced to a new character who I don't expect to be around again, by the name of Agent Kyle Graham. He's the ISA agent working with Billie, and he turns out to be not what he seems, but I guess I won't get to that quite yet. Let's see. Well, actually, I suppose we will, but because we'll just wrap things up shortly. I'm just gonna quickly breeze over my notes and see if I have forgotten anything that I wanted to say. Like I said, this was going to be a casual review, and I did enjoy the show for the most part. I did think it was slightly a little bit too campy at times, but I also thought it was a lot of fun overall, and I'm not sure exactly what I expected. I just really did expect something very 80s/90s, early 90s, like kind of caper adventure, and I think all in all they did a little bit. No, I think they did a very good job with that. It was just a little bit campy, and I would have liked to see a little bit more seriousness to some of the adventure at times, but that's just probably my personal overall opinion. Anyhow, I'm just going to say that Agent Kyle Graham at the end turns out to be Dimitri von Leuschner, who is a relative of Carly Manning and Frankie Brady, who of course were really Francois von Leuschner and Katharina von Leuschner, but we won't get too into that. Another interesting tidbit is they didn't really mention Vivian Alamain too much, who would have been obviously connected on some level to the Alamanian Peacock. Now, they did mention her recently on the main show when Doug confused Marlena and Vivian, so I don't think there's much there either, but just the fact that certain people didn't get brought up that could have got brought up, like Vivian, for instance, and Chelsea. Anyhow, speaking of which, I also want to explain what happened with the quote-unquote Shane meeting Ben. We learn later on that the person that's been going around a lot of the time as Shane is actually his evil twin Drew, and he is in on the scheme to capture these gems that belong to the Alamanian Peacock and the Alamanian government. He obviously wants to get them for himself, and so this Drew, who's the twin brother of Shane Donovan, is in cahoots with Dimitri von Leuschner, aka Agent Kyle Graham. But, of course, at the last minute, because of our hero in this story, they are unable to pull off their scheme, and here is why. Leo has kept the actual final gem that they needed, the green emerald gem, for himself. He replaced it with a decoy when all the gems were gathered finally by the wrong people, and so long story short, the heroes bust in. The Peacock is unable to be detonated. Apparently once you have all the jewels placed inside the Peacock is capable of blowing up a whole bunch of different cities, and the bad guys figured that if they had the ability to blow up all these cities, then they could make high dollar, $1 million demands, $1 billion demands on the various governments and authorities in the world to hand them over some big money so that they wouldn't blow up various cities in the world. And so all because Leo decided to be selfish and crooked as he usually is, and all because he kept that final green gem himself when they tried to detonate the Alamanian Peacock. It did not work. And so everything was foiled, and the good guys win again, and all the gems that belonged to the Alamanian Peacock and the Alamanian Peacock itself, I presume, were returned to the rightful owners after all these years. And so the Alamanes, I suppose, are now in possession of that damn Peacock. And I just want to thank everybody for coming along on the ride with me. That is the story of Beyond Salem, more or less. So we got to see Kristen again. We got to see, in the form of Eileen Davidson, we got to see Kristen, played by the original Kristen, Eileen Davidson. That was fun. We got to see Sister Mary Moira, and I also enjoy Stacey Haddock when she plays Kristen and Susan. I think she does a very good job playing those characters, which is near impossible to do, considering the original actress played 3 to 5 characters on days and did such an amazing job. It was hard for somebody to come in and play those characters. But Stacey Haddock does a very good job when she's on the show. Still, it was good to see Kristen Demura reprise the role of Kristen. Sorry, it was good to see Eileen Davidson reprise the role of Eileen Davidson for a few of these episodes, and it was good to see her as Sister Mary Moira. We've never seen Stacey Haddock as Sister Mary Moira. We did not get to see Eileen Davidson play Susan in this mini-series, but that was not necessary to the story, so you can understand that. And who else? We got to see Lisa Rinna again, so that was cool to see Lisa Rinna back as Billie. I think my favorite was seeing Shane Donovan as ISA agent, Charles Shaughnessy. I keep doing that. Charles Shaughnessy back. And, of course, he played Shane Donovan. And, of course, he also had his own show with Fran Drescher, the nanny, which a lot of people are big fans of. And who else did we get to see? Well, we got to see Tony and Anna, who we have been seeing more on the main show lately, but they're only recurring characters. I hope to see more of Tony and Anna, if possible, in general. And we got to see Austin Peck, the second Austin Reed, Of course, the original Austin was, let's see, can I remember his name right now before we wrap things up? Patrick Muldoon, of course, who moved over to Melrose Place eventually, I believe. And actually, this Beyond Salem had a little bit of a Melrose Place vibe to it at times. Just the fact that they moved around cities and stuff like just some of the titling and stuff like that. A little bit Melrose Place, but I guess we're gonna wrap things up there. So we got to see, of course, Christy Clark, who's been on and off for about 35 years playing Carrie Brady. We got to see her back, and we'll see what happens next. We'll see what happens next time. Of course, Beyond Salem is now complete, and we're in the middle of the week of the next week of the regular show, and I will wrap up the entire week at the end of the week, as always. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoyed this special recap of Beyond Salem. And I think in the future we're going to talk about some of these things a little bit that we glaze over, like the history of Shane and Drew would be nice to talk about. And, there's a lot of stuff that newer viewers might not understand too much, like who were Austin and Greta and why were they in the virtual Garden of Eden. Or I know there's a rumor that the more than a rumor at this point, that the possession storyline is going to be revisited. I was never a fan of that storyline in particular. I am a long time Days fan, and that was one of my least favorite storylines of all time. I did not watch much of the possession storyline. I just thought that was way too campy. But campy plays right into Ron Calviardi's, sorry if I mispronounced that, the head writer. He likes campy, he likes doubles and doppelgangers and long-lost siblings, whereas I would prefer adventure and seeing some of these off-canvas characters more often. So I did like seeing some characters, again, that have been off-canvas for quite some time. I'd like to see more of that. Sonny, they recasted Sonny, and I can understand why, but he also has 4 other siblings that we could see on canvas. I know I've said this before, and I would like to see Isabelle Durant return as Claire Brady. I think it would be really cool to see a Stephanie Johnson again, and even, yes, Chelsea would be great to see back, because there would obviously be some built-in drama and tension between her and Ciara and stuff like that, so that might be cool. There's Noelle and Melissa if Victor and Maggie ever come back. And there's all sorts of characters that we could see on screen that we never have. I always throw out Andrew Donovan as a possibility. We got Teresa, aka Jeannie Donovan, on the show in her adulthood, but we've never seen Andrew Donovan. And before I get too into the weeds, I just wanted to say that, yeah, maybe these specials, if we get any more of them, that would be great, and it might be an opportunity to see what some of these other characters that cannot be on the show full-time due to budget reasons or other reasons. It would be a great opportunity to at least see what they're up to from time to time. And also, it wouldn't hurt on the main show to just mention them more from time to time, what people are up to, especially at Christmas time. So we'll have to see. I'm not going to get into any more right now, but yes, there is a video out, a promo video out, that Marlena may become possessed by the devil again. What I'm hoping is that this is just for Halloween and not a serious long-term storyline, because I think it would be absolutely ridiculous, and I'm not all about a possession storyline, especially all over again. Come up with some brand new ideas. Stop rehashing old stuff. There's plenty of new stuff that we could write, so stop rehashing the old stuff. We don't need a possession storyline, but I could totally deal with a possession storyline if it's just a Halloween fun episode. But beyond that, please, no, we don't need the possession. What else did I want to say before we get out of here? I'm really looking forward to, I don't want Christmas to come too quickly, but I'm really looking forward to see what they do this year with the Christmas episode, because those are always special to everyone on Days, and I can't wait for the Horton Christmas tree ornament hanging episodes. Those are my favorites, so I'll see you all next time. And remember, it's September 15th, so the countdown to Halloween is on. See you next time. I hope you enjoyed Beyond Salem. I hope you enjoyed In Between Days, and keep watching Days of Our Lives. Like, share, subscribe, tell everyone all about this show, and I'll see you next time.